take stock of what the index is telling us, what the chart reading is. We've got Shilpa Rout joining in on the show and Nooresh Merani too. Hi, both of you. Good afternoon. Nooresh, if I could just come to you, quiet consolidation, or would you say the rebound from the last 2 days could get challenged? What are the charts reading?
So in terms of the index, the rebound does not look as great, but the stock specific breadth is much better. So we are looking at a bounce back across a lot of names in the broader markets, even in the index, even in the mid cap and the small cap index. So for now, what we need to see is what happens closer to 19,300 levels in this bounce. As of now, we are making that slow and steady recovery around that area. So for now, the bias is a bounce back to continue towards 19,300, and then maybe we look at it. If we can sustain 19,300, that is the time where you say some bit of a reversal is done.
So that's the view coming in at the index level. Shilpa, what's your view on Nifty Bank and this outperformance that we are seeing in the mid cap and small cap? Do you think a bottom is in place now?
Good afternoon, everyone. I wouldn't agree that we have seen some bottoming happening now. It is on expected lines. This sort of relief rally is happening because we have corrected nearly 5% in the last 6 trading sessions. From there, this sort of small relief rally was expected, and we were thinking that the indices will see 19,250 to 19,400 for Nifty, and Bank Nifty likewise can do 43,500 to 44,000. So whatever is happening right now, it's on expected lines. Till FIs they don't increase their overall long positions, we will not say that there's some sort of bottom happening now. This rally will again get sold into on higher levels. So to stay cautious and booking short profits is what is advisable.
And where are you seeing concentration of weakness coming in, Shilpa? Any sectors that you recommend particularly when it comes to shorts?
No, I wouldn't recommend anything as of short right now because, like I said, the rally could continue towards 19,400 as well. So in that scenario, probably we will see some sort of shorts again appearing. So in that case, banking will again be one sector where you will see that massive sell-off happening because Nifty correcting again towards the targets that we are seeing it's of 18,600. Likewise, Bank Nifty can do again 41,500. So in that ways, we will see a good shorting area in banking sector.
Okay, so point taken. Thanks so much for bringing us those details as well as far as some of those technical factors are concerned. But Jonathan Shizzle also joins us on the show. Jonathan, hi. Okay, so he'll be joining us very shortly. But before that, let's take stock of some of the other big buzzers as well. A lot of result reactions are coming in. So let's look at what IOC and GAIL are doing right now because those were the two latest earnings that we had seen. And then, of course, there were a whole host of other names as well that were reacting, whether it was the Rainbow Children's, which was down in the trading session, Gokul Das Exports, DCX, etc. as well. But Siemens is one stock which even Aisha was flagging out is holding up in the red. Nooresh, what's your sense on Siemens as well as on the gaining side, Pidilite, which is up a good 6%?
So both are reactions to news. So Siemens on the shorter term basis has actually for the last 1.5 months has given a breakdown. Broke recent swing lows after topping out around the same prices. So 4,000 was where it topped out price. So in this case, the last major point where it started out from was 3,200, 3,250. So that area should act as a support. So for now, we are getting close to that area in this band. Do not expect a lot more sell-off out here, but not a buy unless one has a view of a medium-term outlook. We could go sideways rather than bounce back sharply. On Pidilite, again, a single-day move right now. The stock has corrected from 2,700 down to 2,300 in a very slow and steady manner. In this bounce, actually, one should be looking at a short around 2,500, 2,550.
Right, okay, that's the take coming in on Pidilite, one of the key buzzers today. There's Z also, which is holding out well. CUB as well is higher by about 3.5%. And then REC, PFC are moving quite nicely. But
quickly addressing the numbers of Praj Industries as well. It's a good number and a good show this time from the company because the profitability has come in at 62 crores versus 48 crore last year. And even in terms of margin, there is an improvement of almost 200 basis points, and that's the reason you're seeing that reaction. But as promised, we have Jonathan Shizzle joining us on the show. Jonathan, hi, good to have you. Let's begin by discussing some of the earnings of the last week and the last 5 to 7 days. Reliance Industries was, of course, the big one. If you got a chance to look at the numbers, what do you make of that and the prospects of the company going forward?
If I'm honest, it's not a company that we currently do a great deal on. Yes, it's obviously a very large company from an Indian perspective, but we tend to focus on slightly different businesses. So I've not, I'm afraid, had a chance to drill deep down into the numbers as of yet.
Jonathan, what's the overall view though on the market? I mean, of course, the impending, Fed takeaways. Besides that, the kind of exodus that we've had from FIIs when it comes to India, purely because of getting better averages with the yield spiking up in the US. Just wanted to understand, how is it that you feel India is going to be positioned?
Yeah, I think it's interesting out there at the moment. There's one or two analysts from some of the sell side houses who are talking a fairly positive story on India, longer term. I think clearly, as you highlight, in the short term, we're still in that difficult phase where the market's trying to price in, it's likely the Federal Reserve has interest rates are at a peak level, but for how long they'll remain high is clearly the issue. And then secondly, related to that, obviously, is what happens to the US dollar. Because if US rates remain high for longer, and we see rates being cut, say, in the Eurozone or other markets around the world, then the dollar could potentially stay stronger for a little longer than most investors are anticipating. Traditionally, that's been a headwind for emerging markets and the likes of India. I don't think it's quite such the case anymore these days, but obviously traditionally there has been a linkage there. So I think all the factors that we know very well for India still remain in place. And I do still think we will see FII money starting to come back into the market. But obviously, as is usual, a lot of FIIs still struggle a little bit with the valuations that India has compared to some other similar sort of markets.
I think valuation is the reason that we haven't seen much inflows, at least in the last few months. There seems to be consistent outflow actually in the FII money, and usually by the end of the year, that trend really continues. In the meantime, Jonathan, do you have a view on HDFC Bank? Because the earnings of that one were also out. It was a decent set that we had seen, and the commentary from the management regarding the merged entity is also quite descriptive.
Yes, no, I'd agree. It's a name we like and hold. Obviously, we're still going through the, I guess you could call it, indigestion from the merger. But clearly the name has underperformed some of the other private sector banks. But it's still a name. I think the results were good. The franchise is excellent, and I think once we've got a bit more certainty with a few more quarters of the company reporting as the combined entity, I think the market will sort of look through this phase. So it's a name we do like and continue to hold.
I wanted to get in your sense on how you're reading into how the Indian auto space should be looked at right now, because it's quite a divergent theme.
Absolutely. I think it'll be interesting to see. I think there's hopes the rural economy will start to pick up. Obviously, the urban economy has been really buoyant. I guess the auto sector as a whole as well, exports have been very variable. Obviously there's an impact from the slowing global economy on the one hand, but also some other African markets and etc. on the two-wheeler front, look pretty good. I think, clearly it's a sector which you have to do your work on each individual company. We quite like Maruti still. Obviously, with their new lineup of SUVs and stuff, the business looks very attractive. And yes, it's done fairly well in the short term, but I think the business looks quite well set going forward as well.
Point taken. Nooresh, what's your view on the auto companies and which stocks look attractive on the charts?
So the whole auto segment has relatively done better to the index. The auto index as such is above the 50-day moving average compared to the Nifty going down all the way to 200-day moving average. The first one, which has given a multi-year breakout, is Maruti. The stock had topped out at 10,000 back in 2017-18. Then over the last few months also, that same level was a resistance, and now that should act as a support going forward. So on dips, Maruti remains the first bet. Second is if we start seeing more price action about 3,200, 3,250, Hero MotoCorp could be a surprise in terms of the relative underperformance it's done over the long time, but has started now showing some bit of outperformance. And then Tata Motors is again a buy on dips to closer to 600, 620, which remains in a strong trend. So Maruti, Hero MotoCorp, and Tata Motors.
Right. Two stocks that I just want to bring up. IOC, which came out with its numbers about an hour or so back, wherein the net profit definitely has been a beat as opposed to what the street was penciling in. Revenues, of course, have seen a bit of a downtick. They've not quite matched up to what one was anticipating. Margins have seen, of course, a 320 basis points uptick, and the EBITDA as well has come in higher by about 16 odd percent. So that's IOC in trade for you, spiking up almost 2% as we speak right now. And GAIL being the other one as well. That too has managed to report its numbers. It's a bit of a mixed bag. Again, top line hasn't quite matched up with the estimates. It's a downtick of about 6%, but both EBITDA as well as profits have expanded quite a fair bit. Jonathan, do you sense any contra trades in the market right now? I mean, there are beaten down pockets like IT, for instance, barring perhaps a persistent and a KPIT Technologies. But aside of that, there's also FMCG and especially the rural-facing companies, which haven't seen the best of numbers so far. The stocks, of course, have been taking a beating as well for the last two odd quarters. Do you think there's merit in looking at any of the contra trades right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the sector you just mentioned, particularly some of these, staples type names, do have a very well positioned within India, and there is obviously an excellent structural growth story with a lot of these names, assuming they'll still, maintain their investment in their brand and distribution. So yes, the sector globally, actually, the whole staples names have been underperforming. It's a situation not just in India, but we're seeing it pretty much everywhere. And the sector is quite defensive. And clearly at the moment there are a lot of other issues going on that are affecting markets. And I think that the sector probably is worth a look at again. There are some very good quality businesses. I guess the issue for the sector traditionally has always been it's relatively expensive from a valuation perspective. But if these valuations have come off a little bit, it's certainly worth looking at, I would agree.
Jonathan, great to have you on the show. Thanks as always for taking the time out and chatting with us today. Still pretty much in no man's land, still quiet consolidation with a little bit of a negative bias is where the Nifty is. On that note, let's take in some closing trades as well. Shilpa, anything that you're spotting right now and would like to recommend?
Yeah, actually, and I'm liking Indus Tower right now. Indus Tower is trading around 173, 174 zones now. It is having a very strong, setup at around 169. That's a very strong support. So I would like everybody to participate in this with a stop loss of 168 from here for a target, so 185 to 190 again.
Okay, point taken. So Indus Stars is one stock that you like. What about you, Nooresh?
So looking out for a bounce back trade in PVR Inox. So the stock has corrected from 1750 odd levels on the result day. For the last three sessions, it's trying to make a base around current levels of 1570, 1590. So expecting a bounce back here towards 1650, 1700 levels in the short.
Okay, so that's the trade. Indus Towers as well as PVR Inox. Those are the names that our chartists are liking at this point of time. But you know what? Let's take a breather on